Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day-to-day lives. Let's start with the video.
Hello, Reddit community. Recently, an incident that happened between me and my stepdaughter has left me confused and really upset. I'm hoping to get some advice and insight from others who may have experienced something similar or who may have some words of wisdom to share. Background information. I'm a 45-year-old man who's been married to my wife for 5 years. She has a daughter from a previous marriage who's 17 years old and currently in high school. I've always treated my stepdaughter as if she was my own, but I feel like she has never really warmed up to me. My wife had been separated from her husband for about 6 months before she met me, and after meeting me, she realized that she wanted a divorce. I think my stepdaughter might secretly blame me for her parents getting divorced, but honestly, I don't see it that way. I've tried to be as understanding as possible. After all, she is just a kid. I've done everything I could to make her not hate me, and honestly, I thought that things were improving. Recently, we've even been talking a little. However, things took a turn recently when she demanded that I pay for an all-girls Outstation trip she wanted to take with her friends. At first, I was hesitant to agree because I wasn't sure what the trip was for or where they would be going. But after some persuasion from my stepdaughter and my wife, I finally agreed to pay for the trip. I asked her who was going with her and where they were going, and also asked her to share the name of the hotel she would be staying at. My intention was not to control her trip. I just wanted to make sure she and her friends were safe. She got really angry at these questions, though, and told me I was being creepy and nosy and that she was old enough to plan a trip without me interrupting her business. Admittedly, I was a little hurt. I tried not to show it and decided to back off. However, something didn't feel right about the whole situation, so I decided to follow my stepdaughter in my car to see where they were going and what they were doing. I just wanted to see who was with her and where they were staying and planned to come back immediately after finding that out. I didn't tell my wife about this because I didn't know what her reaction would be and I was in no mood to fight. After driving for a few hours and crossing the state borders, I started to wonder where she was going. To protect my privacy, I won't name any of the places, but she was driving to a city instead of the camping trip she had talked about at home. I was thinking of all this when, to my surprise, I saw my stepdaughter pull over on the highway and meet up with a man who stepped out of a black Audi. I almost immediately recognized the number plate. It was my former business partner. I will give you guys some context. My former business partner and I were co-owners of my real estate firm. We had been working together for many years and made a lot of money together. But over the last few years, we got into a lot of disagreements. Things got extremely complicated, and the board decided that he had to step down from his position and sell his share of the company. He did get quite a lot of money, but it was nothing compared to what he would make if he remained a founding member. The whole thing caused quite a stir in our professional circles and even affected my personal life a bit. My stepdaughter knew about him. He had been to our house for dinners in the past, so I knew she knows who he is. The surprising part was why she was meeting with him in secret. She knew everything about the trouble at work and knew very well that I wasn't even on speaking terms with that man. No matter how much I tried, I couldn't find a single reason why she would be meeting him without my or my wife's knowledge. It was shocking, to say the least. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I saw her hand over a bag. They had a brief conversation and both went their separate ways. I kept following her to see where she was going, and the car stopped in front of the gate of some friend of hers. She parked at their place and went in. I stayed there for a couple of hours, wondering if she was just helping her friend pack or something. After a few hours, though, it was clear that they weren't going anywhere. I decided to go back home. My thoughts were still racing, and I had no idea what was in that bag she handed over to him. On going home, I decided to tell my wife about what happened. At first, she wouldn't even believe me. She got quite angry at the fact that I decided to follow her daughter and told me that was not all right. I mean, I do admit that it wasn't exactly amazing of me to do that, but I just was looking out for her. And regardless, that wasn't important anymore. Thankfully, my wife calmed down after a while and realized how complicated the situation was. We decided to act like a team and confront my stepdaughter together. We knew that she would have never come to the house if I asked her, so we decided to lie a little. My wife called her up pretending to be sick and told her I wasn't picking up my phone, so she had to rush home. I know it seems a bit harsh to lie about illness, and many people might find it insensitive, but knowing my stepdaughter, nothing else could have possibly worked. Sure enough, she was home in less than 15 minutes. The moment she walked in and saw her mom and me sitting in the living room, she probably knew she messed up. I decided to just address the elephant in the room and confront my stepdaughter and ask her what was going on. She tried to deny everything at first, but I wasn't going to allow that, so I pressed her further. Finally, she admitted that she was meeting up with my former business partner because she wanted to take revenge on me for replacing her dad. At this point, she was in tears and confessed everything. She told us that she had reached out to him, saying that she had access to my emails and could share them with him if he wanted to get back at me for our fallout. Him, being the parasitic worm that he is, jumped at the opportunity and they made a little deal. I was dumbfounded by this revelation. I couldn't believe that my stepdaughter would go behind my back and take such a huge step to harm me, especially considering how I was starting to think that we can get along. I felt betrayed and hurt by her actions. After the initial shock wore off, I sat down with my stepdaughter and had a long conversation with her about what happened. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that this wasn't just a teen acting out. This was about trust and communication. I've always tried to be a good stepfather to my stepdaughter, but this incident had shaken my trust in her. I'm not sure how to move forward from here. I've talked to my wife about it, and she agrees that what our daughter did was wrong, but she also thinks that I should forgive her and move on. I'm struggling with this because I don't want to hold a grudge against my stepdaughter, but at the same time, I can't just ignore what happened. I feel like there needs to be some consequences for her actions. I'm just not sure what to do here. Update 1. I didn't expect my post to be seen by so many people. Wow. I'll try to answer a few of your questions. My stepdaughter got access to my email through my home computer. She knows the password because she has used it for high school stuff sometimes, and I never really thought of changing it. Obviously, I never saw this coming. Secondly, no, I'm not pressing charges against her. I know she made a mistake and she should definitely face the consequences. But I feel getting the cops involved would be a bit too much. The kid already regrets what she did and has repeatedly apologized to me. She's far from forgiven, but I think we can move past this. Update 2. My wife and I decided to sit down together with her ex-husband and talk to our daughter about what happened. It was a difficult conversation, but we were able to get to the root of the problem. Both of them made it clear to her that they were going to get divorced whether I was in the scenario or not, and that she was wrong to go behind our backs and do something that can potentially have serious consequences for me. We also told her that she could go to jail for what she did, which I feel was a good wake-up call for her. It certainly wasn't easy having this conversation with my wife's ex-husband, but they had a fairly amicable divorce and he was quite nice about the whole thing and tried to make things as smooth as possible. Update 3. I just wanted to say thank you again to everyone who commented on my post. Your advice and support really helped me navigate this difficult situation. I never expected to find such a caring community on Reddit, and I'm grateful for all of your kind words. We're still working through things as a family, but I feel much more confident in our ability to handle any challenges that come our way. This might be an unpopular opinion, but I think you guys are being too easy on your stepdaughter. What she did is quite serious and wasn't some silly little teenage fit of drama. She actually planned and executed the whole thing to cause you serious harm, and I'm pretty sure she's only playing along to avoid getting in trouble. Next story. Throwaway. A little background information. I, 37 female, had my daughter, 16 female, while still in college. My parents felt I was too young to and too broke to raise her, so they raised her. They took on the roles of her parents, and her father has never been in the picture, so I was grateful, and although she knows I'm her mother, she sees me as a sister. I try my best to make sure she lives comfortably and has everything she needs, but really, there's only so much I can do since my parents are capable enough and I appreciate them. The conflict started when she came to stay over at my place 2 weeks ago to try and bond as mother and daughter. I'll be honest, I've always wanted this, but she didn't. She only came because my parents asked her to. She's a darling for the most part, but she leaves every appliance she uses on. If she enters a room and turns on the light, she will leave it on too. It's quite irritating, and I tried to talk to her about it. She laughed it off every time and told stories about her bad memory and what she forgot to turn off at so-and-so's house. Part of me thinks she's doing it to vex me. I honestly have no problem turning lights off when she leaves rooms, but my house is never lacking in kids. I have none myself apart from my daughter, but my friends and neighbors often drop theirs over for me to watch them, and I love them. Yesterday, my daughter went out with friends and left the electric iron on, and I only found out when my neighbor's kid, female 10, told me the iron is hot. Needless to say, I was furious. I went off on my daughter when she came back and reminded her that kids like to poke at sockets, and the iron could have caused an injury. Besides, it's a fire hazard. She said, okay, sorry, and she would try to remember, only to leave it on again this morning. The plan was to stay 2 months, and it's only been 2 weeks, but I'm reconsidering it. My friend thinks sending her back will blow up the only chance at bonding. So will I be the a-hole if I send her back to my parents and ban her from my house regardless? Edit. Info for those calling me a bad mother for giving her away. I did not choose this. They took her. It was a whole court case that ruled in my parents' favor because they had money and I was still in college. They have been great-grandparents, and they have the right to decide whether or not I get to see her, and they only allowed me to meet her when she was 11 and stay with her recently. She also doesn't forget anywhere else, just at my place. Update. Thank you all for the comments and advice. I totally see the mistake I was about to make. I also accept my judgment, and I'm going to take responsibility for my thoughts, which I'm glad did not become actions. I spoke to my daughter a while ago and told her my side of things, how I genuinely feel about her and all this, and she listened. She didn't say much, but she admitted she doesn't really see me as a mother since she knew me as a distant sister first, so she didn't know what to do when her grandparents asked her to come over. She's not ready to call me mom yet. She doesn't think she ever will, and she assumed I would expect her to. She's also upset about me having kids over most of the time, as she feels they shouldn't get the right to be so close and clingy to me when she doesn't have that kind of freedom, because again, I'm more of a sister she sees once in a lifetime to her. Long story short, I realized it's going to be much harder than I ever imagined, but I will try my best going forth to make her feel loved and welcome. I understand I should keep my boundaries, but, in her words, I should stop walking on eggshells around her too, which I will try to do. She didn't promise to do the same, but she did promise to stop doing things that could potentially cause harm, which is a huge step. While on that note, I would also like to point out that it's quite mean for commentators to make assumptions about something they know nothing about. My past had nothing to do with the post, and I left it out. only adding brief answers to questions I got asked. We are all in different countries with different laws and views, and just because things go a certain way in your country doesn't mean they go that exact way in other countries. There are ways to express your view without slut-shaming and name-calling. We all learn from mistakes, and I'm learning from mine. I appreciate your judgment on my actions, but I hope you can be kinder on other people's posts, regardless of whether they are TA or not. YTA, going from unplug the iron to get out of my house, is quite a leap. You now suddenly have your child in the house. At 16, she looks adult, but she is a kid. Child-proof it. Have conversations with your child. Discuss what is a suitable reaction if she can't remember to not put your place on fire. If one of those discussions comes to the conclusion that you are neither of you happy in this situation, ask if she would rather go back to grandma. Be an adult. Try being a parent. Don't be the teenage older sister that overreacts. Next story. I'm 39 male, and my wife, 36 female, and I have been married for 6 years, together for 10. We have 2 boys, C, 3 male, and B, newborn. My father-in-law is a great guy. He loves the grandkids and loves my wife and I, but he chooses awful partners. His newest wife, I'll call Lori, treats him like shit. He has medical issues and she leaves the hospital runs, grocery shopping, etc. to his kids so she can go out for long weekends with her friends. Father-in-law and Lori have been married for 3 years, and I have been respectful to her, but she really gets under my skin. She refers to my kids as her grandkids on social media, but only wants anything to do with them when she can gloat and get validation from her friends online. They are not allowed at her house without my wife or I present, and she makes no effort to be in their lives. Leading up to the birth, B, Laurie was harassing my wife and I about his first name. It's a family name. C is named after myself, and B is named after my father, alive, and brother who tragically died before he could have children. She kept telling us how much she disliked the name and would try to give us better options. My wife would constantly explain how important this was to me and that she loved the name. The big day came and father-in-law and Laurie came to visit my wife in the hospital after B's birth. She immediately started calling him by his middle name, L. I asked her what the deal was, and she said she couldn't stand his first name, so from now on she would call him by his middle name. My wife asked her to please not, and that we would really appreciate the courtesy of respecting our wishes and calling him how we want to call him. She kind of looked up at me and sneered and said, I really can't do that. Please pass L to me, and I want to take some photos for Facebook. At this point, I lost my shit. I told her to STFU and get out. She was so disrespectful on so many levels. I feel like not only is she not respecting my son's name and our wishes, she's also throwing shade at my father and departed brother to whom I was very close. She stormed out, and father-in-law and I haven't seen them since. My wife agrees with the sentiments, but thinks I could have been more tactful in my presentation. My father-in-law, who I have always had a great relationship with and want to continue to have a great relationship with, thinks I need to apologize to his wife. My wife's siblings think I was harsh and that she was only joking around. The only person on my side is my dad. Was I the AH here? I'm willing to apologize and keep the peace, but only if she will compromise and respect my wishes to call B by his name. Edit. Clarification. First, my father is still alive, and I have edited the post to reflect this. Second, my wife chose to name C after me. That was not my first choice. And as for B, we both liked the name and thought it would be a good tribute to my brother. I found out Laurie will be out of town this weekend, so I am going to go over to father-in-law's house and have a sit-down with him and let him know that I love him, and it wasn't personal towards him. We'll go from there. NTA. She sounds entitled and tedious. Is there any way to get father-in-law to get himself into therapy? Seriously, it helped my dad. His picker was flat busted. 4 wives and lots of therapy later, He's finally got one that isn't flighty or hateful. NTA, being tactful, got your wife nowhere when mother-in-law responded by doing what she wanted to do in the first place, the opposite of what you as a team wanted. I think by how you described your mother-in-law, I'm on team scorched earth. Treat her like she treats you. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.